Hey everybody, Z Garcia here, and today it's the first day of spring and we're going to be taking on our rival gardeners in Village Green. In this game, each player is going to be building up their own village greens in front of them on the table on a grid of cards, and you are going to be taking green cards, playing them out in front of you. You are also going to be taking and playing award cards that are going to score based on the cards in front of it. So you are trying to outmaneuver everybody while dealing with the puzzle of the game as it arises, because there are certain limitations as to where you can and cannot play that become tricky to deal with. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at how the game works. I'm going to see you on the other side after that, and then we will go over some final thoughts. Here we go. To set up the game, we're going to give each player a village card. You can pick the one you want from among these choices. Everybody gets 3 random award cards. You'll set them here next to your village. You'll shuffle up the deck and display 3. You remove some as well based on the number of players. And then we do a similar thing with the green cards. You get a hand of 3. Everybody has a hand of 3. You'll reveal 3 to make a pool and remove some based on the number of players. Once that's done, you've got a start player. You are ready to begin. In the game, you are trying to get the most victory points. You are going to do that by planting cards in a 3x3 grid, the green cards, and then having award cards on the outside of that, pointing at lines and columns and scoring based on what the card says. You're also going to get some bonus points for pawns and minor things like that. But that's the central idea. Play out your 3x3 grid and score based on the awards here on the outside. Game's going to be over when this deck runs out, or this deck runs out, or someone makes the full 3x3 grid of green cards. When you finish out the round, and then we are going to score up. So on your turn, you do one of 2 things. That's it. You are going to draw a green card and play a green card, or you are going to draw an award and play an award. That's it. You can also, when you quote-unquote play, you can just get rid of one. The green ones, that is. So when you come over here and you take one of these, you could take one from the available pool, and then replenish that, and then you will play one, or again, get rid of one. Or you could always just take one from the top of the deck, and then play or get rid of one. The first card you play out here has no real limitation as to where you can play. You can put it anywhere you want in your imaginary grid here. So I'm just going to make it easy and put it there, okay? After that, every card you play, you always must check if it is adjacent to anything, that it follows the placement rules. Now, you don't have to play adjacent to anything. I could take this card and put it down here at the bottom of the grid, right? So I'm skipping 1, 2 cards, and it's that corner of the grid. But if I want to play next to anything else, then I have to follow the placement rules. And every card adjacent to it must have the same flower, i.e. the same shape, and or the same color. So I could play this one here. And then later on, because they're both red, I could play this one here adjacent to that because they are the same flower, and so on. Now, to play in here, I have to satisfy both rules. I have to make sure that it's either a red card with that flower or a blue card with that flower, whatever combination I want. All right? So that's what you're doing. And again, it's always draw 1, play 1, so your hand always begins at 3 and ends at 3 at the end of your turn. Don't forget, one of the triggers to end the game is 9 cards out here. So that's the main limitation of playing out there. The other option, like I said, is playing these awards. When you take one of them, you are going to take one and you are going to immediately play it. You will take one of these and play it into one of these spots. You could even cover up a previous one. That's allowed, whereas it is not allowed in the green card. You cannot cover something up. Once you cover that up, it'll change the rule, which is going to score for you for that column or that line if you put it, say, over here. There's no order in which you have to do these. I could do the bottom one first, and then this one, and then this one. It doesn't matter how you do it. And having these filled does not trigger the end of the game. Just the green cards will trigger the end of the game. So that's basically it. Now, again, the cards have a few different symbols across the bottom, So let's mention some of those things and mention a couple of the special scoring cards to give you an idea of how, the very simple rules lead to a game that has some puzzly aspects going on. So the cards are going to feature trees sometimes. There are 3 different kinds of trees, and many of the scoring goals are going to be based on that. So for example, this card here scores 1 point for each kind of tree. It does not care what kinds of trees. This one also happens to be a tree scoring card, and it's going to count every kind of tree. It doesn't matter, but a very specific number. And you have to watch out for the bad gaps in the numbers, whereas you might end up losing points instead of making points. And so on based on the kinds of trees. This one is very specific. There's a kind of tree you want and a kind of tree to avoid. So there you go. Other things you're going to find on the green card. You'll find pawns. Every pawn is worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. Hence the symbols there. And some of those are going to be scored based on these cards out here. Or combinations of things. Such as this one here. If you have a man-made structure, tree, and a pond, that's 6 points. Now, a man-made structure, when you play one of those, you are going to immediately, after placing this card, you get a bonus play of 1 goal card, one of these award cards. So once this is out there, you can then take one of these and put it into play. All right, and then we'll, of course, replenish that and so on. There are a few other things you'll see. You'll see grass cards here. These have no flower in the corner. They can legally go next to everything. They will fill that spot. You could later on play on top of those. That's allowed. Still satisfying the rules. But it mainly lets you avoid having an empty spot, which is a big deal, and many of the cards can penalize you for having an empty spot out in your grid. So there you go. That's basically that. I don't think I'm missing anything that you really need to know that is particularly vital. Obviously, I can't show you every award card, but this should give you an idea of the kinds of things you can expect to see. Different combinations, different things it'll check for. This one just cares about actually cards being filled. That's all that is worried about. So, this one is specifically grass cards. You want to have just grass cards in its way. Once that's done, you'll score 2 points for each pond, 1 point for this if you haven't used it. I know, I haven't explained that yet. And then these points for each of these, and each of these, high score is the winner. Now, what's this do? All right, well, one time in the game, you are allowed to, before your turn, flip it face down, basically give up a point, and then do one of 2 things. You can refresh one of these 2 lines of 3 cards. So basically take all 3, bury them, and draw a new lineup of 3. Or you can play over a previous tree card following all the rules. One time. You can break that rule by flipping this over. All right? That's pretty much it. That should give you an idea of how the game works. So let's go ahead and go back up top. Let me tell you, now that you know how it works, how the game feels. A game of pretty gardens and petty grudges, it says. And I do love that tagline. I think it's a good one. So let's talk about Village Green here. This is a tiny package, by the way. I should point that out. This is a small box. It's a thin box. There's a good amount of game in this little box. This is a solid card game. There is more depth there than the box would lead you to believe. And I'm always a fan of those kinds of games. I think it's enjoyable and interesting to discover a bigger game inside the box than on the outside. It's an interesting phenomenon, probably unique to board gaming. So let's talk about this. I'm going to start at the very top and just make my way through it. I have a couple of minor things I want to mention as negatives, but overall, this is a positive review. I like the game. I think it's well done. We're going to start at the top with theme. I think it's elegant. I think it's pastoral and lovely and welcoming and warm. Yeah, maybe a little played out at this point. There have been a lot of games about building, lovely gardens and bees and welcoming the flowers. And there's a lot of games about that as of late. Doesn't really detract from this one, but I'm not reviewing this in a bubble either, so be aware of that. I feel it's a little played out, but it still owns that theme and does it well. The aesthetics are very nice. Card quality is good. The yellow flowers are too hard to see. That's my main takeaway for the aesthetics. They really should have gone with a different color, though I'd like yellow, or put a little outline on the flower, something. The yellow's not working out for me. It's really hard to see. You have to get that card up close. My vision's not that bad, but you have to get that card up close to tell what flower, i.e. shape, you are looking at. It's clearly yellow, but you need to be able to see what kind of flower it is, and I wish I would have changed the pip a little bit on the cards. The replay value is good, very good. There are lots of different combinations you're going to be presented with, right? The puzzle is going to reveal itself to you in many different ways. The fact that you've got the same goal as you did last time in this one column doesn't really matter because you've got the cross goals, and so the perfect card for that spot won't really be the same card. That's neat, and I like the way that the game evolves, and I like the way you can change goals to make the inside, which is harder to manipulate, fit, or make the outside, rather, fit the inside, which is harder to manipulate, right? Game arc in this game, I like it, because it's short. The game's a very punchy, quick game, and it quickly becomes a puzzle. It very quickly becomes a problem of, what can I do? What can I not do? What's the best I could possibly do? It's a game of striving to really make as many points as possible and deciding when is a good time to move on from making this puzzle fit this column and just move on to working on this side of the what I'm doing here. So I like that. I like the spinning plates, and you can't possibly get the best score in every column, right? Maybe you could, but it's so hard. So I enjoy that aspect of it. The arc of everything slowly becoming more about figuring out what can I do. Now, the flip side of that is I could see this game leading to a little analysis paralysis with some people. Figuring out what can I play where and what's the absolute best score I can get. Be aware of that. I would recommend, if that's an issue, maybe play with a lower player count, which is lovely. It's fine. The ease of play. I have some small rules questions in it, but otherwise it is a very easy game. Some of the things I wish had a little clarification in the rule book. So, for example, this is what I mean. Okay, this was the main one, and I just ruled it one way and went with it. The green cards say that to play them, you have to play them so that the flower type or color of all the adjacent cards matches the new one you are introducing. It specifically says that. It says it must, bold, match each adjacent green card by flower type, flower color, or both. Then when you go over here to the lawns have no flowers. You can place a lawn next to any green card and vice versa. You may also place green cards on top of a lawn card as long as it matches the flower type or color of any adjacent green cards. But any is not bolded, so do they mean as long as it matches the cards around it or as long as it matches any one? That one threw me for a loop a little bit. I'm not sure if the lawn is supposed to make it easier to play. You play a lawn and then you can play a card a little more easily, fewer restrictions, or if they just mean, if you later on get a card you can play here following all the normal rules, then you can cover the lawn. So, a couple of small things like that. Not a big deal, but I want to point it out. Lastly, tactics, strategy, luck. It's good. You put your plan in place at the beginning, right? You've got your 3 starting goals. You go with those. So you've got in this game a goal, a target, something you're looking for in your hand of cards, on the green cards on the table. You pick goals that make sense, the award cards, but it's like a plan that is ever evolving. You are constantly changing what's going on the table to fit your goals and changing the goals to fit what's on the table. So it's a nice way to manage both parts of what normally you would only manage one thing, where you are given limitations. And by limitations, I mean ideal scoring situation. And then you build the thing that ideally scores for you. In this one, you are managing and changing both parts of that equation at the same time. Turn after turn. You can change either side of that. You later on see a better scoring card for a column you thought you were doing okay in. you can change the target you were going for. So I like that very much. I think it makes it quite satisfying to play. So there you go. That is what I think of Village Green. I like it. Nice game, nice packaging, nice amount of stuff going on in such a tiny box. So I think this one's going to appeal to a lot of people if it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. That's my main concern right now. It is small. It does have that look that many games do lately. The title isn't really popping for me, Village Green. But I hope it finds an audience because I think it's a great game. It is, I think, one of the very best Pierre Sylvestre designs I've played. So there you go. This is going to get an 8 out of 10 from me, which means it's going to be a seal of approval. Check it out, folks. If you enjoy this theme, and I think you know who you are, I think this is a good one. And I think it's going to please those that approach it. This is not misleading, is what I'm saying. You're going to get a good game out of here. So there you go. That's it for me. My name is Z Garcia. I'm going to see you on the next one.